Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here for this 3T at 3 series, our third Tuesday at 3 event we hold every month. For January 2025, our topic is your 2025 IT checklist. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us live or to be watching this recording on demand. I'm Allen Falcon, CEO of Cumulus Global. I want to thank you. Also remind you before we get into the content that the audio is muted, that prevents any background noise from getting in the way. So there's an icon along the top or right-hand side of your screen that opens a questions window. That's the best way to contact me during the session. I can track to make sure we get your questions answered, or I can follow up with you one-on-one after the session if it's more appropriate. This event is, as with all our online events, being recorded. We generally get it posted within 24 hours. We'll send you a link once it's available. Feel free to share. And this webcast series and event series is one of multiple event series we have, as well as a wide range of resources you can read, watch, and explore in our resource center on the website. We're posting there regularly. We add to our resource library at least on a monthly basis. We have multiple events a month. We have 2 weekly bulletins, one focused on Microsoft, one focused on Google Workspace, as well as the other resources, our blog, our newsletter, etc. So please check it out, sign up, and subscribe to what is most useful to you and your team. As we get into talking about your 2025 IT checklist, there's 5 big ideas, or maybe more appropriately, 5 areas we want to focus on. And for the purpose of time, I've got a lot of ground to cover. I'm going to jump right in. So first off is Windows 10 end of life. Hasn't gotten much press, hasn't got much attention. We started talking about it last October into November, December. But October 14th, 2025, Microsoft ends support for Windows 10. That means there's no more updates and features. There's no more support. And there are no more free security updates. Now, for certain situations, you can purchase extended security update. It's a package. You buy it on an annual basis. Microsoft generally offers that for at least 1 year, maybe as long as 3. It depends. They haven't actually announced how long they'll offer those extended security updates for Windows 10. But you have a couple of options with this. You can stay on Windows 10 with caveats, knowing that if you stay on Windows 10 and you're not buying the extended security update and participating in that program, then you're not going to get any more security updates and you'll be putting your systems at risk. Microsoft still regularly updates its operating systems to prevent security risks and breaches that can happen. And as we're more connected and more cloud connected, it's even more important to keep that local machine that you're accessing your cloud services from safe and secure. For some systems, you might be able to upgrade components within the device, add memory, bump up the disk space if you need to. Typically, memory and processor are the limiting factors on whether or not a device will support Windows 11 versus Windows 10. You may be able to do a memory upgrade there. More common in desktops and laptops, and that's sort of a lost art and skill out there in the world, as we tend to, buy machines that we don't expect to need to upgrade and keep them for that 3 to 5 year period. The other option, of course, is to upgrade a device if it's not going to be compatible with Windows 11, and there's a cost involved in that. Now, we do expect this year to see increased demand for devices because of the upgrade and the impact it'll have. And so be prepared for pricing and availability issues. Some other aspects out there can affect pricing as well, particularly if the current administration decides to impose tariffs on these devices and on the components used to manufacture the devices for those built in the US. So what's the checklist with respect to Windows 10 end of life? First off, inventory your devices, not just your laptops and your desktop systems, but if you're in manufacturing or distribution or have equipment that you use in your business that is computer controlled and driven, again, whether it's part of the assembly line or it's a CNC machine, if that's running over a Windows operating system, you should know what it is and what version it is. You need to be talking to those manufacturers to see what you're supposed to do there. Identify for all of these resources, whether it's a standalone Windows 10 laptop or desktop or embedded system, must it be replaced? Must it be, and can it be upgraded if that's an option? And then you'll come across some that you don't really need to upgrade, but they should. Why? Well, they're Microsoft Windows 11 compatible, but they're going to be low on memory and the performance is going to be slow, or it's an older processor, or the device is already, 3 years old and, it's out of warranty and you might be having other troubles with it. And so you can make a decision that says we don't have to upgrade this, but we should, to provide a good quality and reliable user experience. Know that as a company, for our clients who look to extend the life of their devices, we'll help them with the upgrades and what that should be replaced. One of the things we're able to offer is a low-cost extended warranty that includes accidental damage that gives you a like replacement. And so you'll get a similarly aged configured model, generally same make, model, brand, that's been factory refurbished and certified for a couple bucks a month in coverage. And so it's an option there as well. If you're feeling that you have some things that should be replaced, you don't have the budget for now, there's a lower cost alternative. And of course, they're going to be machines that you can't replace, and you're going to have to come up with another solution. And those tend to be components serving specific applications or embedded systems. Once you have that list, you can come up with a capital and service plan. This is what you're going to buy and when, but it also has evolved who's going to receive, set up, configure, deploy. Maybe that's an IT managed service provider, maybe that's someone in-house or a mix. And is your managed service, even if you're on a managed service provider plan, do they see this as a project as opposed to something covered by the service? So you want to understand the timing, the resources, and the costs, and then you got to execute. And keep in mind that with the threat of tariffs coming into play, there will be an impact on technology supply chains. There has been every other time there's been an effort to tariff products from China, Mexico, Canada, etc., where these products are generally manufactured or where from they ship. Next up is productivity. Surveys over the last couple of years, I've seen 4 or 5 different ones. On average, they all say the same thing. Over 65% of small businesses use less than 40% of their productivity suite capabilities. This is an area of focus. Why? Because when people feel they need additional productivity, the first thing is, well, we need to add something. We need to go out and buy another tool to help us get things done. And we'll talk about some simplifying and simplicity down the road a little bit later in the session. But it's really important to understand that a little bit of investment in awareness and knowledge can save you tens, hundreds, thousands of dollars a year in IT costs, can lower your support costs, and improve your team's productivity. And the key is that you want your folks to go beyond what you know and how you already do it. And the starting point for that is really improving awareness of capabilities, encouraging learning and sharing of knowledge. So this is a culture that says, hey, there's a capability out there. Will it work for us? I'm going to try it. Oh, we might have to rethink this workflow or change how we do something to use the capability, but it'll make us more efficient. The best example is the majority of people running Google Workspace and Microsoft 365 are still attaching documents to email when they need to be reviewed or shared, rather than sharing the link and working off a single source of truth, managing the permissions, and working off a single document. And we've documented the efficiency of the shared link, single source capability of Google Workspace and Microsoft 365 for close to 15 years now. And for many, it's still a struggle. It's just not the way they grew up. It's not the way they're used to working and doing it. Now, generationally, newer members to the workforce who are coming out of colleges and universities who work and provide their learning environment in the cloud are much more comfortable with the single document. Let's share it. I'll say, I'll decide who can edit and who can suggest in managing that sharing to manage the process of document reviews and information sharing. Even so, they're often put into companies where the first document they're asked to look at is sent as an attachment. And then they're a little bit lost, and it's easy to conform and fall back into that old style of work. And so part of this is rethinking your workflow and tasks. So for the checklist, we want you to assess your productivity usage. This isn't just about documents, it's about everything. Go into the admin console, we can help you with this. Look at your user reports, your administrative reports, your application reports, what's being used, what's not, what could be used more, and ask for feedback from your users, please. Say, hey, how are you using this? Is it easy? Is it hard? Are there other things you wish it could do that it's not doing? Oftentimes those wishes can be done. The user's never been taught or is unaware that they can be done. With that usage information, you can identify mismatched systems, bottlenecks in your tasks and workflows, and even identify features that can improve those tasks and workflows. And that really starts the rethinking process where you can look at the features that you want for efficiency. And so, for example, we've seen organizations that had spreadsheets to collect data and converted those into forms and just made it easier to do. Why? Because it's forms in both Microsoft and Google Workspace are automatically responsive to the size of a screen. And so if you have a spreadsheet, yes, you can do it. Editing in Excel or Google Sheet on a phone can be done. It's awkward. There's a lot of scrolling, a lot of zoom in, zoom out. Are you lost? Are you in edit mode? Are you in view mode? Convert that information gathering to a form, and it automatically reformats for the screen. People go through, they fill in the fields, they hit submit, boom, it's done. And so looking at how the tools can leverage that efficiency and make it easier for people to do their jobs is there. And then you're going to make decisions about those processes and how you're going to change them. And again, educate and train. Make sure your people know and provide them how-to support. Realistically, we are a strategic partner with Microsoft for their cloud services and Google predominantly around Workspace. We can't fix Google Workspace if it's broken. The vast majority of our support, either at the administrative level or at the end user level, is how-to. Hey, I'm trying to do this. It's not working the way I thought it would. Help me figure it out. Or can I do this? That type of education, that type of support really helps people get more value out of the money you're already spending on your productivity suite. And around that, as people learn, you want to create an expectation that they're going to share. So if someone says, hey, I figured out a better way to do this, have it, whether it's in a weekly or biweekly team meeting, whether it's once a month, whether it's a lunch and learn, whether or not it's just having, encouraging people to throw it up in the Google team chat or in a Teams flow in Microsoft Teams, share those hints and the best practices. And at times when you rethink a process and to get better use of your tool, leaders need to come and sometimes say, this is how we will be doing it in the future. And not necessarily giving people a choice. Sometimes that's necessary to impact change as well. And as you go through and as things improve, recognize those improvements both for the individuals leading and adopting well as teams, whether they're identifying improvements or whether they're buying in and taking that step and making that change. You want to say thank you and you want to call them out as a positive thing. Okay, AI, as we've said before, 2025, we believe, is the year when AI goes from euphoria, oh my goodness, this is the magic potion that's going to solve all of our problems, to reality. And the reason we say that is most companies that, and particularly small businesses who've turned on AI have just ended up with a mess, right? People aren't sure how to use it. They're not sure when to use it. There's no guidance on when it's appropriate or inappropriate to use it. Their data might not have been prepared well enough, so information that's private is suddenly in your Copilot or your Notebook LM model and is available to everyone in the company. All of those things come into play. And so just, giving folks a new tool without a little bit of boundary and a little bit of training and support can really lead to chaos and can cause other problems, can actually do damage. And so our suggestion is that folks need to be focusing on those practical implementations. Keep in mind security of your information, your processes, and the overall cost. And I say cost because there's a lot of folks out there saying, hey, I'm trying this AI tool, it works, it does X, Y, Z, I'm going to get the paid version. The manager says, fine. Not realizing that 7 other people in the company have each picked a different tool and are paying for those tools that do the same thing. And then Dave over in that department in the remote building who's already signed up for 3 tools, paid versions, do the same thing because he keeps picking one, buying it, and deciding it's not quite what he needs, right? So you want to focus on management and controlling that cost as well. And understand that solutions can be standalone services, a utility, or they can be embedded within the systems you already have. And your decisions about AI will impact and require budget and resources to make sure they're implemented and supported properly. So the first thing we ask people to do is review your data governance. Are your permissions set up? Is your data classified? Do you know what's confidential? Do you know what's proprietary? Do you know what information from your clients or about your clients that you need to protect? Whether it's best business practice, industry expectations, or regulatory standards. And do you have policies and procedures in place that cover the data governance and give your employees at least guidance on what they have to be aware of when they start using AI or making changes to data access? As you do your data governance, step back and review your security. How's your identity and access management? And do you have data loss prevention mechanisms in place? And even policies and procedures around that. So do you know, for example, that if you use a particular AI product, is it making your data public because it's using it to learn, right? Those concerns all come into play. From there, identify your use cases. Look at tasks and workflows that can benefit from using AI as a tool, and assess the scope, impact, and priority of making that happen. And why? Because there'll be things that are big in scope, have high impact, but are really a low priority. And with that use case, and you start to look at tools and how you're going to solve it, budget, cost, and timing will come into play as well. And so initially, if you're just starting out with AI, you're going to want the low-hanging fruit. Manageable scope, non-critical impact, reasonable priority that people will feel a benefit from it, and the ability to identify a tool, select a solution, and deploy in an inexpensive, cost-appropriate manner to get it out there. And so those are the remaining steps. You're going to look for those tools. Always, first, look within your existing systems. Most small business applications and systems are adding AI enhancements and capabilities at a rapid pace. Make sure you understand what's there and what's coming before you start spending money on a third-party product or an additional solution you need to integrate or switch between. With that, you can select your solution. Again, look at the security, the functional and security integration with your existing systems. We always recommend to test and try before you buy, and do that pilot with an actual use case. Don't just say, oh, we're going to have this dummy thing and people play around with it here and there. You're going to get people to play around with it and say it looks good without actually knowing how it'll support or affect, even improve their workflows in their job. And finally, understand the administrative load. Some tools are set and forget. Others require ongoing maintenance administration. And you want to know what you're getting into from a management and administration standpoint before you pull the trigger. And when you deploy, make sure your people understand how to use the tool, what its purpose is, when it's appropriate, when it's not, and how it fits in with their job and their workflow. So, when to do it. So, for example, we have an AI tool within one of our systems that will take the audio and video recording of this session and will break it out into an outline that we can use for an ebook. It'll break it into chunks for blog posts or social media posts if we want to repurpose the content. We have rules about using that tool only for our original content that we create, and a process where we review the results for structure, grammar, form, accuracy, intent, and voice, right, before we actually. So it's a draft. It's saving us tons of hours on the break and reposition. It's not saving us time on editing and finalization and presentation, because we still need to review that. So understand how everything fits in to what you use. Would be remiss if I didn't mention that there's a lot happening in the AI world. Microsoft is repositioning AI as well. They've added the solution and provide some AI as upsell for consumer products. We expect Copilot will be moving into core Microsoft 365 products, particularly now that it's Microsoft 365 Copilot in a rename. Microsoft is changing the way they're licensing the core services, Teams, AI. Expect more of that to happen over the next 3 to 9 months. On the Google side, Google made a big announcement mid-January. One, they released, Gemini 2.0 was released. That's the advanced product you pay for. Gemini for Google Workspace is gone, effective immediately. Gemini AI capabilities are now embedded in the Google Workspace Core license. Now the features, the press release that Google gave was a bit misleading. The features you get from Gemini AI are actually based on your subscription level. And because AI is now included, every single Google Workspace license is going up by approximately 17%. Some a little more, some a little less to keep the numbers clean. But there's a price increase on the core. Now, granted, you're not paying the $20 or $30 per user per month for the AI capability, but you will be paying anywhere from $1 to $5 more per month now that it's embedded, even if you choose not to use those features. It's also to note that the business tier subscriptions, Business Starter, Business Standard, and Business Plus, do not automatically have the ability to turn off and select which Gemini AI features you want to use, other than access to the Gemini app, which is the gemini.google.com website that you can integrate from a security standpoint with your Google Workspace environment. The sidebars that show up in your inbox and with the calendar and in Google Docs and Drives, with Meets and Chats, all of those AI components, you cannot control them at the business tier without going through a very specific type of support request that we can help you. The enterprise licenses do have the ability to select and turn on and off those capabilities. It's important to note the timing for new customers going to Google Direct. The new pricing is in effect immediately. For existing Google customers and those working with partners, the price increase will happen on March 17th, which means buy decisions for processing time really need to be made by March 15th. And the reason the timing is important is if you're on a flex plan, you're already paying a 20% surcharge. If you want to move to an annual commitment plan and you do it before that March 15th deadline, not only do you drop the 20% surcharge, but you will avoid the 17% price increase for a year. If you're upgrading, if you've been thinking about upgrading your edition of Google Workspace, also doing it before March 15th, you get the upgrade at the new license's current price. You don't have to pay for the Gemini AI features that come with that license until the initial term of your upgrade agreement comes into play. And whether it's a flip from Flex to Annual or an upgrade from, let's say Google Workplace Business Starter to Business Standard, or from Standard to Plus, or from Plus to Enterprise Standard, we are always happy to go Google and say, hey, we've got a customer, they want to upgrade. What can we do for a one-year commitment? It varies on a case-by-case basis, number of seats, etc. But we're pretty confident that in most cases we could secure that existing price for up to 3 years. And so you can avoid that 17% increase while still getting the AI features that are built into the core product. So timing's important there, and you need a reseller. You need to be working with a Google partner like Cumulus Global or another partner. Some are willing to do it, some aren't, because there's a lot of headache and paperwork and back and forth involved at times to go to bat for you and see how long we can hold the current pricing. So it's a reason to reach out if that's on your mind. Next up, as the time runs a little long here, is security. Again, it's never ending and it's always evolving. Our security CPMR model still holds true. Communication and education, protection and prevention, respond and recover. We continue to see in the coming year new demands, both regulatory and industry, and a new focus on frameworks. The three most common being CMMC in the government space, so that's starting to migrate into commerce, CIS, and NIST. In our opinion, for most small businesses, CIS is the most reasonable framework to benchmark your security against. Resilience, a lot of people have talked in the past about backup recovery, disaster recovery, malware or cryptoware recovery. The new term really and the new mindset is really about resilience. And the goal is not just to be able to respond to an issue or recover, whether it's a cyber attack, equipment failure, an act of God, but to maintain your operational viability as quickly as possible after the crisis and ensure continuity. And that's continuity of your data, your systems, your business operations, with the understanding that well, in parallel to the detailed response and recovery actions you might be taking, you are still able to keep the core of your business moving forward in a way that you can still service your customers, your employees, and your stakeholders. So we talk about security. Now is a great time to benchmark your security profile. A rapid security assessment covers the very basics. Make sure you're covered there. A level 1 penetration test, you can check out our website. We've got some ebooks and some online events about the role of pen testing. It'll identify the gaps and the weaknesses, help you prioritize. We do offer a free cyber insurance risk assessment that looks at your general level risk based on your location, your company size, and the industry you're in. You should also now double check with respect to any industry or regulatory compliance requirements you have. And it's a good time to make sure that you have your business continuity and disaster recovery plans in place. That's part of that resilience. Now, with these assessments, you'll identify risks and security gaps. You can prioritize those. Again, it's scope, impact, and cost come into play. And you certainly want to get things that are easy to fix, higher priority items that are easy to fix, that have reasonable scope, reasonable impact, and a low cost. It's always a good place to start with that low-hanging fruit, to use the coin phrase. With those gaps and risks, you can identify solutions. Sometimes it's education and training. Oftentimes, you can reconfigure the security settings within your current systems, or you might upgrade and deploy. Historically, for example, with Google Workspace, most companies have upgraded when they've needed more storage, or they're looking for more capacity. So, a client hits the storage pool limit in Business Starter, they're going to ask to move up to Business Standard, or they're having large Google Meets and they need to upgrade their license so they can have more people live in the meeting or be able to live stream it. They're going after the features and the capabilities. That's great. With both Microsoft 365 Copilot and Google Workspace, your security features and capabilities also scale with the license. So for example, the enterprise licenses in Google Workspace have data loss prevention tools that don't exist in the business tiers. And so before you go buy a third-party system, see if upgrading and using the built-in capability is sufficient. It will generally, in fact, almost all cases, be less expensive than integrating a third-party tool. So with that understanding of the solutions and flagging them as good, better, best, you can plan your improvements. Again, you're not going to do everything all at once, so prioritized phased implementation. Make sure those essentials are covered first. Map out your budget and resources. You may have workflow changes as you implement security changes. And again, train and educate your employee. Not just, hey, this is what you're going to have to do to log in, but why and the reasoning, and make sure everyone understands that they're part of the solution as well as the potential problem. And then the next message is periodic review. It's not enough to do this every year or two. Depending on your business, you should be reassessing at least annually. Many businesses are on a semi-annual, quarterly, or 3-time-a-year process. That review can be going back to the security assessment. It can definitely going back to that penetration testing, which will identify things you've addressed, new risks, and it'll reassess the priorities and the severity of those risks. That lets you prioritize and update your plans, which means you're going to spend smarter, and it gives you an opportunity to validate your improvements and prove your resiliency, which comes into place operationally, potentially with your supply chain. It definitely has an impact with your cyber insurance carrier as far as levels of coverage and the premiums you're going to pay. And finally, we're going to jump into simplicity. Someone asked me when I talk about simplicity, should I use the reduce, reuse, recycle analogy? Maybe it sort of fits, but it's the general concept, right? And we see even in small businesses, IT environments getting more complex. Why? Because we keep adding apps, we keep adding services, we keep adding things that each individual thing we add make a function or a set of tasks or a specific workflow easier, but overall create a complexity and a cost in the environment that can have a compounding effect from not just a cost, but an operational, a support, and a security and reliability standpoints as well. So the first thing is we always talk about duplication of services. These are costly. not just because you're paying for Zoom, you have Meets or Meets, Google Meets or Teams available within, the Google and Microsoft ecosystems, but there's soft costs as well. If you've got multiple tools doing the same thing, you've got to administrate them, you've got to set up user access, you've got to manage the security, you've got to make sure people know how to use it. You're supporting three things instead of one. And it creates an inefficiency among your employees, right? You have a team and one person is comfortable sharing out of a Google Shared Drive or is My Drive. Another employee isn't, and she's moving everything to a personal Dropbox account and sharing that way. And great, that might be easier for them, but it creates other problems. So the second thing is looking at shadow IT, also costly and inefficient with the added security risk and the potential for data loss and data exfiltration and data disappearing. We've had companies who did not realize that their lead salesperson was keeping everything in a personal Dropbox account, who then left the company. And they go in to look at their files, and his directories are virtually empty. No records of customer calls, no copies of signed contracts and agreements and proposal versions. A real mess to deal with. So get rid of that shadow IT. And then the last thing might be a little controversial, is mixed systems. When you mix systems that are designed to do the same thing, you're going to end up living with workarounds. So I'm going to ask the question, for everyone on the call or watching this video on demand, if you're using Google Workspace because you love the email, the calendaring, and that aspect of it, you even like storing stuff in Drive, but you're still using the Microsoft Office editors on your desktop, you're mixing and matching. And so what are you missing out on, right? You're missing out on the ability from inside a document in Microsoft Word to be able to share it directly. You're missing the ability to easily share links for documents in shared space from email. You're missing the ability to easily add documents that were going to be referenced in an upcoming meeting when you book an appointment. There's a lot of capabilities you lose, and you end up doing a lot of workaround. Okay, the number of times I've received meeting invites where in the meeting invite it says, ignore the Teams link, we're going to use the Zoom link below, is astounding. Now, granted, I understand that Zoom has paid versions that let you integrate into Microsoft 365 Copilot and let you integrate into Google Workspace. Even so, you're mixing and matching environments and it comes in. And so the challenge for us, and the challenge we'll put out to you, is if you're mixing and matching systems, the question is why, and is the impact outweighing the benefits? And is the difference between Microsoft's email client and Google's email client now so different that you can't adapt and in return gain all sorts of efficiencies? I will tell you that roughly a third of the companies that were migrating into Microsoft 365 Copilot or Google Workspace, a little more than a third are people coming from the other productivity suite or another cloud suite like Zoho, right? And they're doing that because by getting all of their tools into the same ecosystem and relying on them that way, the additional level of integration, even more so now that AI is in the mix, has more benefits than the psychological hurdle of switching systems. Functionally, haven't seen something you can do in one and not the other in a long time from an end user standpoint. It's just not there. Really rethink your mixed systems. So what do we want you to do? We want you to identify those duplicate services, particularly third parties versus the productivity suite you're running. Scan your credit card receipts and your employee expense reports to make sure they're not paying for something that you're not aware of, and then verify the need. Why are you using Zoom instead of Teams? Why are you using Zoom instead of Meets? Why are you using Dropbox to share files and manage files instead of, SharePoint file services, OneDrive, MyDrive, Google Shared Drives? And when you do that, is that a requirement from a customer or an industry who will only work with you if you do it a certain way? And can you adapt? If I said, well, if we forced you to give up Dropbox Can you do everything? Can you learn and do everything you need to do within the tools we're already paying for? 99% of the time, that's a yes. At that point, help that user move to the approved solution. It's not just pulling the rug out from them. There has to be education and training. And if they decide to go around your back and do shadow IT, there's got to be a consequence. The other thing we look for, and this is sort of common opportunities we look for where we see the most duplicity, meeting tools, not just the tools themselves, but now the transcripting and note-taking AI tools that get added in are being duplicated. File sharing, also very common, Dropbox, Box, other third-party tools, even though you've got a robust sharing mechanism in place. And appointment scheduling. Both Microsoft 365, Copilot, and Google Workspace, and most of their license tiers offer an appointment scheduling capability. And so when you start looking at Calendly and other third-party tools that don't fully integrate, they're not necessary. And particularly if you're also running a CRM system like a HubSpot that has a meeting tool that integrates well, you certainly don't need to be paying for a standalone appointment scheduling tool. And then finally, look for the mixed and mismatched environment. If you're mixing productivity suites, Google and Microsoft, we'll ask you why. We have tools and we have a method to help you figure out whether it should stay that way, or if not, which way you should go. The other place we see a lot of mix and mismatch is in telephony. We'll have folks run duplicate phone tools and messaging services and meeting services to the point where they've got 3 or 4 ways to make or receive a phone call. Even 2 ways or 3 ways is too many. There's an opportunity to try and skill that down. So what are your next steps? Assess. Start with that assessment as a thank you for being here, and we'll send it out in the follow-up. We'll be happy to do that rapid security assessment, a level 1 sample pen test, and even the cyber security insurance assessment free of charge. You can reach out to us. We'll send you information on how to make that happen. With that assessment, you can define, we can help you do this, your priorities, and then the scope, impact, effort, and cost of each of them. So you can make a plan. Again, phased execution, thinking about budget, resources, and timing. And then as you execute and you do your implementation, having that education and that not only administrative, managerial, but the end user support so people know what you're doing, why, and how it all works. Okay, I've covered a ton of ground. I've run way long than we hope or plan the third Tuesday at 3 sessions to go. We try and keep it within a half hour with Q&A, and I'm already at about 45 minutes or about 40 minutes. But now is the time to ask questions. Feel free to open that questions window, and I'll stay on the line here for a few minutes. Additionally, if you want to talk offline, you want to talk about your environment, specifically, my contact information is on the screen, as well as our general contact information. If you're going to reach out to me, I don't have an assistant. I answer my emails. I'm horrible about answering my phone, and even worse about voicemail. Best way to reach me is by email. If I can't answer you quickly, I will have someone on my team get back to you. Best way to get a hold of us, use the QR code or the bit.ly there, or send an email to info. You'll connect, schedule no obligation, free, complimentary, however you want to phrase it, session with one of our cloud advisors who can help discuss your situation, assess your needs, provide you solutions and alternatives. We'll identify where areas we can help and where you might need other resources as well. And so on that note, I want to thank you all for joining us here for our January 3T3 series online event, your 2025 IT checklist. We hope the content, even though we covered a lot of ground, I'm speaking very quickly, was beneficial for you and was a good use of your time. For those who are watching on demand, thank you for doing so. You know how to reach us as well. At this point, I'm going to stop the recording and come on back to catch any last-minute questions folks might have. Thank you all. Have a great day.